All right, everybody, good evening. We'll go ahead and get started with our very quick work session, which is just agenda review. Let's see. So first up, we've got minutes from February 6th and February 13th that we need to approve. And then as far as consent agenda, or sorry, we'll just go down the line. Number one is CVA 2227 from Amy George. It's at 4355 North Fifeshire Avenue, and it's a variance to encroach the rear and street side setback on 0.16 acres in an R1C single family zone. We are recommending denial, so we will be hearing that one this evening. Item number two is CUP 2240 for Idaho Electric Signs. That's at 2472 North Milwaukee Street. It's a conditional use permit for an off-premise sign and an electric message display, freestanding sign associated with an existing church on 0.34 acres in an LOD zone. We are recommending approval, and we have not received any objections, so we can try for consent on number two. Item number three is CUP 23-2 from John Balkin, and that is at 5360 North Eagle Road. It's a modification to a conditional use permit to allow for personal services over 1,000 square feet on 0.98 acres in an R1C zone. We are also recommending approval on this one and haven't heard any opposition, so we can try for consent on three as well. And then the last one with item four is CFH 2290, PUD 2268, and sub 2269. So that's a category 3 hillside development permit associated with the grading for a residential subdivision. And that's going to be comprised of 5 single family homes on 5.03 acres in an A1 open lands zone. We are recommending approval on this one, but the applicant is in opposition to conditions number 2, 3, and 6 that require curb gutter and detached sidewalks along the street and then the common driveway, and also prohibiting a gate from being installed across the driveway. So we'll be hearing that one. So again, for consent, we'll try put the minutes on there, willing by the commission, and then items 2 and 3. So nice and easy. Anybody have any questions on any of those?
Thanks, Crystal. Everybody good?
Cool.
John, you good? Okay, thumbs up from John.
All right, got 10 minutes then.
Okay.
All right, enough of that quietness. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Boise City Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing. A few things to start out with for tonight's proceedings. Everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually has been automatically muted and cannot speak. As the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you will be called upon and unmuted. There is a chat function in Zoom. This is not part of the record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. Our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team, then we'll go to the applicant and then the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association, followed by questions from the commission. After that, we proceed to public testimony, starting with those who are in person, then who signed up on the sign-up sheet in advance, and then anyone else who raises their hand virtually. If you are attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. Each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. We are strict with this time as it is limited in code. Finally, the applicant is allowed 5 minutes for rebuttal, after which the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate and render a decision. Mr. Chair, you have the floor.
Thanks, Crystal. Good evening. We are citizen volunteers appointed by the mayor and approved by the city council. We make final decisions on conditional use permits, variances, and appeals, and recommendations to the city council on subdivisions, rezones, annexations, and code or comprehensive plan amendments. Any decision made tonight may be appealed to the city council, provided that the appeal is filed within 10 days of this hearing. In order to file an appeal, you must have given written or oral testimony at tonight's meeting. That's why it's important to give your name and address when you testify tonight. We utilize the consent agenda. This means that if the applicant agrees with the staff report, and if there is no public opposition, the item will be placed on the consent agenda. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved with one motion without further public comment. For items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the order just detailed a few minutes ago with staff, applicant, neighborhood association, and then public testimony. Thank you all for attending tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Stead.
Here.
Schaefer.
Here.
Wires. Blanchard.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Gillespie. Penbrook.
Here.
Danley.
Here.
Mooney.
Here.
7 present, 2 absent.
Okay, thank you. All right, pretty short agenda tonight. We have a couple items eligible for consent, so we'll start there. To kick that off, without objection, I'll place our meeting minutes from February 6th and February 13th on the consent agenda. Thank you. And then moving to our new business tonight, we'll start with item number 2, which looks like it's eligible for consent. This is CUP 22-40 Idaho Electric Signs. The address is 2472 North Milwaukee Street. This is a conditional use permit for an off-premise sign and electronic message display, freestanding sign associated with an existing church on 0.34 acres in an LOD zone. And is the applicant present this evening? Sorry. Hi there. And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Okay, great. Thanks. Let the record show the applicant is present and in agreement with the staff report. And is there anyone in attendance that's hoping to testify in opposition to this item? Okay, very good. We'll go ahead and place item 2 on the consent agenda. And we got one more here. Next one is item number 3. This is CUP 23-2, John Balkan. The address is 5360 North Eagle Road. This is a modification to a conditional use permit to allow for personal services over 1,000 square feet on 0.98 acres in R1C zone. And is the applicant present? Great. And are you in agreement with the terms and conditions of the staff report? Okay, great. Let the record show the applicant is present and agrees with our staff report. And is there anyone hoping to testify in opposition to this item tonight? Okay, very good. We'll go ahead and place item number 3 on the consent agenda then. And I believe that does it. So at this point, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Danley.
make a motion that the consent agenda consisting of meeting minutes from February 6th and February 13th, as well as item number 2, CUP 22-40, located at 2472 North Milwaukee Street, a conditional use permit, as well as item 3, CUP 23-2, located at 5360 North Eagle Road, a modification to a conditional use permit, be approved with the respective terms and conditions in their staff reports.
Second.
Okay, great. Thank you. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion was by Commissioner Danley with a second by Commissioner Stead. Is there any further discussion? All right, we'll go ahead then and call the vote. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Stead.
Aye.
Schaefer.
Aye.
Blanchard.
Aye.
Moore.
Aye.
Penbrook.
Aye.
Danley.
Aye.
Mooney.
Aye.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, great. Thanks. All right, we'll go ahead and return back to the top of our agenda, back to item number 1. This is CBA 22-27. The applicant is Amy George. The address is 4355 North Fifeshire Avenue. This is a variance to encroach the rear and street side setbacks on 0.16 acres in an R1C zone. And first, we're going to hear from staff, Mr. David Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The applicant is requesting a variance for a detached structure to encroach into the rear and street side setbacks on 0.16 acres located at 4355 North Fifeshire Avenue in our R1C zone. As you can see from the aerial photograph, the subject property is located in a residential neighborhood, which is comprised primarily of single-family residential homes. The aerial photograph here shows the location of the detached structure on site. The building is a basic 120 square foot tough shed, basically 10 by 12. And as shown here, The shed encroaches about 6 feet into the required 20-foot street side setback and 9 feet into the required 15-foot setback. There's a bit of a history with this application in that the applicant received a notice of violation for the structure located in the street side setback. In response to the notice, they relocated the detached structure away from the street and closer to the single-family house on the south side of the property and installed a 6-foot high fence along the street side property line to screen the building. However, even with the relocation, the building is still located in the required setbacks, and as such, they're requesting a variance. The planning team cannot identify a hardship or an exceptional circumstance to justify the variance. In addition, there appears to be a location on site where the shed could be located that complies with the required setbacks. In particular, the development code allows for reduced setbacks for small detached structures and sheds. To qualify, the shed would need to be less than or equal to 100 square feet in size, the wall height less than 7 feet as measured from top of roof under the, or top of wall under the roof to finish grade, and it would need to provide a 6 feet of separation from other buildings. In other words, it could be located, if it complied to these, in other words, it could be located along the interior side and rear property lines. As such, there might be space on the north side of the property to relocate the shed and comply with these setbacks as seen on this slide. However, the plan is not very detailed, so these measurements would need to be confirmed, and allowances need to be made for the shed eave not to overhang the property line. These pictures here kind of show the proposed shed and the site and the wall or the fencing that was installed to screen it. So in conclusion, the planning team recommends denial of variance since we could not find a hardship or an exceptional circumstance to justify. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Next, we'll hear from the applicant. The applicant present. Yeah, please come on up here to the podium. You can start with your name and address for the record, then you'll have 10 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Amy George and 4355 North Fifeshire Avenue is my address. And basically, when I bought this property, I purchased it knowing that there was not an HOA. And before purchasing the shed, I did investigate whether or not a permit had to be purchased or not to place the shed, and there was no permit necessary. So I did have the shed placed, and at the time of the complaint, yes, the shed was closer to the street and closer to the sidewalk and everything. And so I did my best as far as moving it closer to the house and shielding it also so it would not be no longer an eyesore to whoever complained about it. And I also wanted to notate that, yeah, building code said it had to be 6 feet from the house and 5.5 feet from the rear fence. So I did comply with those measurements, but there's still not enough room to be quite compliant with the side street. However, there is no health or safety concern there, which is notated in the denial. If I were to move it to the north side of the property, there is an overhanging tree there that is in the way, and it's like way over onto my property. It's not even my tree. So that's one reason why we did not move it over to the north side of the property there. And then also it would not be compliant with the building code at that point, as far as being as far away from the house. So I was asking for a variance in that way that it could, now that I have moved it and shielded it, that it could just stay there. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. George. We'll check in real quick first before we do questions. We'll see if someone from the neighborhood association is here, and then we may have some questions for you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, just checking in, make sure is anyone present from the West Valley Neighborhood Association? Okay, doesn't look like it. So we'll go ahead then and open this up for questions by the commission to either staff or the applicant.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Moore?
so for the exceptions for the 120 square foot thing, that's has to be, the wall of the shed has to be under 7 feet, like to the top plate sort of deal?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that is correct. That is correct. The wall of the shed would have to be under 7 feet as measured from the top of the wall under roof to finished grade.
Okay. Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
do you know how tall it is? It doesn't look like it's terribly much over that.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I don't know exactly how tall it is. The specifications for the tough shed that were delivered with the application indicate that the door was 6'7". And there's a little bit on top. There might be 5 inches on top of the door to get it to that, right to that 7 foot or maybe under. It's hard to say. Most of those pre-made sheds, I think we built our code to comply with those pre-made and pre-manufactured sheds such as tough. So I would assume it's under the 7 feet, but it is currently jacked up on blocks. So that would clearly throw it over.
Mr. Chair.
Mhm.
So if it was, I don't know why it's on blocks, but if it was removed from those blocks, this variance would be kind of not needed.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, unfortunately, the reduced setbacks only apply to the rear and interior side. This is a street side.
Gotcha.
So you have to comply with the 20-foot street side setback.
Okay. Thank you.
And David, for the staff report, it's the street side setback that's encroached. It's further encroached into the street side setback than the rear. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, it is encroaching into the street side by like 6 feet, and it is encroaching to the rear. And I included that because it's currently up on blocks. So the wall height by definition is over that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it is in the rear setback as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Pinprock.
I have a question for David as well. So for the natural hardship, do we ever consider corner lots as being a natural hardship, or would we in this situation not consider it because there's another alternate location where we can move the shed?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, sometimes on corner lots, if they're substandard, then we've considered that because kind of substandard lot where it's actually smaller than the 70 feet, and that restricts some of the building area. Also, sometimes if the house is faced towards the wide section instead of that kind of like messes with the rear yard setbacks. So those could be considered. I don't know if they necessarily apply, especially the substandard doesn't apply in this situation. Orientation of the house could in this situation, but there's a potential for another location on site.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Danley.
a couple questions. So, David, it's not, so there was a legitimate complaint made and that's what brought this about. Is that accurate?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that is correct.
Okay. And there's also discussion from the applicant about this impossibility of compliance as it's stated, and it has to do with when the house was originally built. Can we elaborate a little bit on that? And I would welcome the applicant if there's anything you want to add to that, but.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, I think, and that's in reference to the, as for the current placement of the house, that's in reference to the fact that the house is encroaching slightly into the rear setback when they built it in 1983 or 2. So I think at one corner of the house, it only has like a 12-foot setback instead of the required 15. And then they oriented the house towards the wide section of the lot, which shrinks the size or width of the house. So now you have a front side and a rear setback on the narrow portion of the lot. I think that's what they're referencing to.
But it's your opinion that that's sort of regardless of the fact that you think it can be in a different location on the lot itself.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, their site plan indicates 16 feet on the north side of the property. If you rotate it, so the 10-foot wide section of the shed is right against the fence, and then you have the 6 feet of separation, so you can be against the property line. The only hiccup there is I just don't know if there's how much space, if there's actually 16 or 16 plus or a little bit less. The site plan wasn't that detailed, and then it would still need to be inset a few inches so that the eave you're not pouring water over the neighbor's fence line. So you have to at least bring it in a few inches. But based on the rough dimensions of the site plan, it looked like it could fit there, but I don't have any detailed site plans to confirm that.
Mr. Chair, just a couple more quick ones.
Yeah, please.
So David, is it the general opinion that the public health safety element of this argument, is it nuisance? Is it a visual nuisance that I'm just making sure I understand.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, that's for public health and safety. The only thing, it's outside the clear vision triangle, so it's not a safety issue. It might, given the fact that it's currently on blocks and it's 5 feet from the rear property line, so it's actually a little bit taller than normal, there could be an impact onto the neighboring property to the, was it west side? Being that we actually have a bit taller building against their rear property line. I think I did mention that as a possibility for an impact onto that neighbor. But there is no health and safety issue. It's clear setback in this, it's outside the clear vision per se. It's more of a design and sort of putting a detached structure in the side yard and sort of an appearance and design that proposes in the nuisance.
I'll ask one more question if I can.
Please.
Can you pull up the aerial? I don't recall seeing it in our packet, which is why not that degree of clarity. The next one down, maybe was it in? Yes. I guess I'm going to ask this question. So your neighboring property has a structure on the fence line too. That is, I'm just curious if, well, I'm not sure how to ask the question, but.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, it does look like they have some sort of RV parked in the back and some type of RV in the driveway or some type of trailer.
Tit for tat thing.
That being said, it's, I can't speak to what the current neighbor is versus the next, whoever buys the property.
Got it. I won't ask any questions. Thanks.
Actually, I have a question for you, Miss George, if you want to come back up.
So
You can go, please go ahead, sir.
I was just going to say that neighbor that is right next to me there, he actually came over and helped me move the shed back towards, he didn't have any complaint about it being that close to the fence line. And at the time the complaint was made, yes, it was closer to the sidewalk and more in the middle of that area. So, and then as far as the other north side where he's talking about, if you just take note of that tree that's hanging over onto my roof, it is one reason why I found it difficult to place the shed on that side of the property. And then to the block issue, they might be 3-inch blocks. It's just for leveling purposes.
Okay. And that's actually my question for you is going to be, if you talked with your neighbor to the north with looks like maybe a pine tree that might be the issue. And you just, is that a non-starter have you coordinated with them and asked them the question if you were able to limb the tree up to get the shed in location? Is there some reason why that's just been a non-starter to this point?
Well, they have trimmed that tree, but I don't think that they are willing to take it down. And I didn't feel like it was in my realm to ask them to do that. The limbs below it are still trimmed, but it's still very overhanging. And so when I proposed that to them as far as, hey, your tree is like almost touching my roof, they did trim it back some, but they weren't willing or volunteering to remove that tree.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? John, you good online? Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I got a question for the applicant, Ms. George.
Yeah.
It looks like you went to a lot of work there to coordinate with the neighbor and move the shed and then put up a nice screening fence to mitigate the complaint. I guess my question is, did you coordinate with anyone on the planning staff with the city? Because I'm certain they would have given you some direction on a location that would work in accordance with code. Did you talk to anyone or just make a move?
I did I came down to the planning and we did talk about it, and they said that they told me at that point that there was really no place that was completely compliant with the planning. So at that time, we just did the best we could to move it as back and as close as we could.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks, John. Okay, any other questions, gang? All right, thank you. We'll go ahead and open this item up for any public testimony. Go ahead. You're here to, if you'd like to testify on this item and you're in person, the podium is free. Come on up and you have 3 minutes to testify. And if you're online, would like to testify on this item, go ahead and raise your hand. And we'll do the online folks after the in-person folks. Okay, looks like no takers on public testimony. Okay, so at this point, Ms. George, the applicant has a few minutes for rebuttal to rebut anything from the public testimony. That didn't happen. So you're welcome to for a quick rebuttal, or you can certainly yield that time if you would like.
I think I've said everything.
If you don't mind, just on the mic there so everybody can hear you, the record.
I think I've said everything. I mean, I did come down and meet with planning. And like I said, they said the orientation of my house wouldn't relegate any place that was compliant at that time. So like I said, I just did the best I could.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. George. Okay, then at this point, we'll go ahead and bring this item back before the commission to render a decision. Again, we're talking about CVA 22-27.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Blanchard.
I would move that we deny CVA 22-27.
Second.
Okay. All right. I have a motion to deny by Commissioner Blanchard with a second by Commissioner Stead. Any further discussion?
I will chime in here. Sorry, Ms. George, I think nobody wants to be the bad guy here, but this is just, the commission very rarely finds for variances on these. My colleague Milt, who usually sits in this chair right here, is the one who is almost inevitably opposed to variances, even when there is legitimate hardship. But I think the staff's been very clear that there isn't a legitimate hardship here. And the burden really is on the homeowner to make sure they comply. You did what you're supposed to do, which is come and see the city. And I think they were clear. It sounds like that there wasn't a way to make this shed work. So I'm glad that you're cognizant of the fact that the city isn't going around and policing code enforcement issues. This was a complaint that a neighbor lodged. Likely, they're probably not happy with the fence either. We've seen this a number of times. So I wouldn't have recommended that strategy, but at any rate, it's just a pretty clear cut denial for why the staff outlined. So.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner Blanchard. Any other discussion? Okay. Yeah, Ms. George, I'll second Commissioner Blanchard's thoughts here. I'm sorry for the situation. It does seem that there's another opportunity to locate that shed elsewhere on the property. I would encourage you to try and coordinate with that neighbor to the north and see if you can make that space work on the other side of the house to at least get it within closer compliance to code. But yeah, I agree with the motion. I'll be supporting the motion, and sorry, that's the situation that we're in, but that's kind of where we're at. So unless there's any other discussion on the matter, I'll go ahead and call the roll. Again, this is CVA 22-27, a motion to deny by Commissioner Blanchard and a second by Commissioner Stead.
Stead,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Moore, Feinbrock,
Aye.
Danley,
Aye.
Mooney,
Aye.
all in favor, motion carries.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. we'll go ahead and move on to our last item tonight, which is item number 4. This is CFH 22-90, PUD 22-68, and SUB 22-69, Riley Planning Services LLC, Burgundy View subdivision. The address is 248 North Benepaso Place. This is a Category 2 hillside development permit for grading associated with a residential subdivision on 5.03 acres in an A1 zone. A conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 5 single-family units on 5.03 acres in a A1 zone, and then the associated preliminary plat for the residential subdivision. First, we're going to hear from staff, and I believe that is Sabrina Mortensen. Hi, Sabrina.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The item before you is a request for a conditional use permit for a planned residential development comprised of 5 single-family units on 5.03 acres located at 248 North Benepaso Place in an A1 zone. A Category 3 hillside development permit for the grading associated with the residential subdivision, and a preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 5 buildable lots are also included. The subject property currently functions as a vineyard, and the only existing structure on the property is a well house in the northeastern portion of the property, which the applicant proposes to maintain for irrigation purposes. 5 residential lots are proposed, and each lot will be developed with a custom designed single-family home. All vehicular access to the subdivision will be provided by a 20-foot wide common driveway, and the applicant proposes to install a gate across the common drive approximately 50 feet into the site. The comprehensive plan prohibits gated developments in the foothills due to the potential for such development to restrict or delay emergency response and to impede pedestrian and bicycle connectivity. Therefore, a recommended condition of approval requires the common driveway to remain unrestricted. Through the PUD, the applicant requests minor deviations from the dimensional standards of the A1 zone. However, the proposal complies with all height limits, parking requirements, and perimeter setbacks of the zone. The proposed amenities include the use of drought-tolerant landscaping throughout the development and the maintenance of an existing public trail connection which runs through the northeastern corner of the site. The applicant requests to waive the subdivision requirement to install curb gutter and detached sidewalks with landscape buffers containing street trees. The planning team finds that the requested waiver is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, which includes multiple goals and policies that specifically call for the installation of sidewalks and expansion of multimodal facilities throughout the city and within the foothills planning area. The applicant submitted late correspondence included in your packets, which expressed concern regarding conditions that require access to the common driveway to remain unrestricted. They also expressed concern that the installation of detached sidewalks and street trees along Benepaso Place and the common driveway may pose a fire risk, encourage parking along the southern side of Benepaso Place where parking is restricted, and impede the fire department's ability to stage their equipment. However, the fire department has indicated no opposition to the installation of sidewalks or street trees in those locations, and has noted that WUI compatible street tree species should be utilized if the trees are required. The applicant also requests to waive the requirement for a 30-foot defensible space WUI easement along the eastern boundary of the subdivision. The fire department has confirmed that this requirement may be waived as long as the adjacent subdivision maintains their common lot to the east as developed land. In conclusion, the planning team finds that as conditioned, the application complies with all hillside ordinance, PUD, and subdivision requirements and recommends approval, and I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thanks, Sabrina. Next, we'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Penelope Constantakis, representing Marquee Development Group, Post Office Box 405, Boise, Idaho 83701. The entire project team is here this evening, and that includes the project manager, the project engineer, and the geotechnical engineer. I know that you like to stay with 10 minutes, but some indulgence would be nice so that we could get everyone who might be needed for answering questions up in front of you, but I'll move as quickly as I can.
Okay, great, thanks.
We've all appreciated Sabrina's courtesy and professionalism in preparing our application and moving it through the process. Burgundy View subdivision is a 5-lot infill subdivision surrounded on 3 sides with 2 phases of Nativa Terra. The site has been zoned A1 and will remain a zone of A1, and the proposed density is consistent with that designation. The vision for the site was to create a residential subdivision that is context sensitive and respectful of the surrounds. The smallest lot is under 1 acre. The generous open space between the residences that comes with this low density allows for ample space between individual structures. This is a hillside development, but the slope of the site is minimal. Revegetation of the site will be accomplished with native and drought-resistant species. The project team reached out to Boise Fire very early in the process to make sure that their needs would be incorporated into the design of the site. Neighborhood meeting was held on site and a number of the adjacent homeowners attended. A work session was held by Boise City and none of the neighbors attended that meeting. The team has endeavored to provide the city with a complete and comprehensive application packet. Amenities for the site are the use of the native species and the Foothills Trail adjacent to the site to the east. Although the access point for the trail is not located in the common lot originally dedicated for this purpose by Nativa Terra, the developer elected to retain the access on Lot 1 to preserve the backyard privacy of the 2 existing homes that are located at the northwest corner of the adjacent subdivision. Providing the necessary legal documents to codify that location will be prepared and provided to the city in the final platting process. It should be noted as well that Burgundy View subdivision is accepting drainage from the Nativa Terra subdivision that is to the east, and it crosses the common lot in order to preserve the grade and design of the Foothills Trail common lot and the west boundary of the adjacent subdivision, because to move that drainage would require quite a bit of work. Parking is an issue in the area for all the neighbors. The neighbors all reported that informal concert attendees use the Foothills Access Trail and park on Benny Posto and other adjacent streets. With the original approval in Nativa Terra, the south side of Benny Posto was no parking. The no parking designation along the south side of Benny Posto is also addressed in the approved ACHD staff report, indicating that district standards require a pedestrian facility on one side of the street in the foothills. There is an existing sidewalk present now on the north side of Benny Posto. In addition to carrying forward the historic fire department condition of approval for no parking on the south side of Benny Posto, providing the fire department with an area to stage for emergencies is in the best interest of the community and the adjacent residents. A response to the staff report was submitted and covers a variety of items. The common driveway is actually 2 flag lots with an ingress-egress easement to provide the other lots with access and to consolidate access for all 5 lots into one public street connection. So it's actually 2 lots that are flags that connect to the public right of way. And then we've got ingress, egress afforded to the other residents so that they can use that and we can consolidate our access point. To minimize impervious surfaces in this unique location and to prevent informal concert goers from utilizing the common driveway, the applicant is opposed to a more formal street section with curb gutter, sidewalk, and landscape buffer. Each of these residents have very large lots and will easily be able to accommodate guest parking. Each of these lots either have rear yard access to the public street or to the Foothills Trail. While gating the common driveway is not generally approvable in the foothills, the project team believes this circumstance warrants a gate for several reasons. The fire department will not be dependent on the common driveway for access to the open foothills area. To the south, excuse me, as is provided with the Foothills Trail designed and constructed to provide equipment access to the foothills. A Knox box will provide emergency services with easy access, and the slope of the site is very mild, which is uncharacteristic for foothills development. My response letter details issues with the customary landscaping preference that Boise City usually requires. And I should note that there are no standards in the code with relating to common driveways that require curb gutter and sidewalk that we could locate. There really isn't any good choice for trees in a landscape buffer, and the WUI element of the site context makes any kind of a tree unadvisable. I spent a lot of time reading the tree guide. I looked at every one and evaluated each one of them for their ignition potential as well as what kind of water requirement they had. And even the ones that are low water requirement, that kicks in once the trees have reached maturity. So there just aren't any good trees. Conifers are never good in a fire prone area. A schematic has been provided, and oh, thank you for putting that up. A schematic has been provided identifying the relevant setbacks and orientation of each lot. This is a very complex site with unusual geometry. To prevent future interpretation issues, the applicant would like the recently submitted setback chart and orientation exhibit to be included in the approved materials. The preliminary WUI letter provides initial information about the site and the implementation of the WUI standards relative to this specific development. Staff recommended that a defensible space setback be included along the east side of the subdivision. The letter from Environmental Conservation Services clarifies the defensible space needs for this site. Between the width of the common trail lot and the 15-foot setback along the rear yards of the eastern parcels, the separation exceeds 30 feet of the defensible space requirement, leaving only the requirement for a defensible space setback along the south boundary. That the common lot with Nativa Terra that houses that access trail, I don't think it can ever go away. It's a fire department access. It's Idaho Department of Lands access. That's there to stay. It'll never disappear. CCNRs will be prepared for Burgundy View subdivision that include pressurized irrigation, use and maintenance of the flag lot, common lot driveway or common driveway, and no parking on the common driveway and other items as needed. The project team believes that the proposed site design and density is appropriate for the context of the site and respectfully requests that the site-specific conditions of approval be modified to delete conditions 2, 3, and 6. On a side note, an effort was made to rehome those great plants, but it's my understanding that because of their age, they can't be certified. And so the project manager was not able to rehome those plants. And I kind of expected a little smile or something. They're rehoming things. I would be happy to answer any questions you have and then hand this off to the geotechnical engineer.
I think there's any questions right now. Ms.
Very good.
Constantakis, we can go ahead and just hand it off to your colleagues. You bet.
Good evening. I'm Bob Arnold with Site Consulting, 5565 Kendall, Boise, Idaho, 83706. As was indicated, it's a hillside subdivision, therefore a rather extensive geotech, geology, and hydrology report was prepared, submitted to the city of Boise. We met with the city of Boise prior to undertaking this project, and then again after completion of the report to discuss it. I again contacted the city of Boise Engineering Department today to confirm that they had no concerns. They indicated they were not planning on attending. And so I'm just really here to make myself available to, for any questions you may have or the general public may have concerning geotechnical issues. I would point out that item 2 in my executive summary states that our research generated no geotechnical, geological, or hydrological concerns for the proposed development.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mr. Arnold. Appreciate it.
All right. Derek Kerner, David Evans and Associates, 9175 West Black Eagle Drive in Boise, civil engineer on this project. Just want to tell you a little bit about the grading that we have proposed and talk a little bit about those conditions that we asked for. Site's located in a natural saddle. So we're actually, yes, it's hillside, but it's gentle slopes on the site. Our site is lower than all the surrounding homes, and that will remain so. The northern part of it, so we got a gentle site, a gentle slope from the north to the south, and we're going to grade that to make that even more gentle. So the north part of the site, we're going to take it down a little bit. The south part of the site, we're going to fill it in a little bit. And so you're just going to create a flatter area for these lots. As far as slopes go, you're going to come in flat off of Beneposto, go past the gate if allowed, drop down 5%, then it'll plane out to about 2% all the way to the end of the driveway. So nothing too extreme. The goal is to have the lot 3, which is the southernmost lot, to be level with the pathway adjacent to it, not any higher. And still the pathway is quite a bit lower than the homes to the east that you see there. We're calling for about 3,000 to 5,000 cubic yards of structural fill to bring in for the roadway and the home sites. Again, the finished homes, all of them will be lower than the neighboring homes by quite a bit. Roof and driveways are going to be draining to a centralized seepage bed. All right, and then as far as the detached sidewalk, we're asking that we don't, not required to put that detached sidewalk along Bene Posto. In the hillsides, it's a good idea to limit impervious surfaces. That's why ACHD in their staff report for this application says, hey, we only want sidewalks on one side of the road. And that's to limit impervious surfaces in the hillside. So pedestrian connectivity, we have it on the north side of Bene Posto. So that's why we're asking to not install it on the south. You got the fire department that wants that no parking anyway. They can stage their vehicles in a fire emergency. It also helps us comply with the neighbor's wishes, disturbing as little as possible. And then again, just retaining that curb as a no parking zone. Either we'll paint it red, we'll work with the fire department, or we'll put signs up so that there's no parking there. And it was historically painted red, it's just completely faded. So they would like that reinstated. The dual detached sidewalks down our common drive, really no requirement for that. It's not what we envision. Again, limiting the impervious surfaces in the hillside, but we're just planning for a 20-foot wide curvaceous something that looks aesthetically pleasing gate if allowed. On the gate, there is a rule in your guys' hillside rules that says, hey, no gate. Well, the understanding is, well, why is that? Well, it's probably due to emergency access, but working with the fire department, they're open to a gate being there, and they've given us guidelines of how we put an electronic gate to meet their standards. So if we, with engineering, are able to prove that Bene Posto not being a very steep road, our entrance not being a very steep road, yes, it's in the hillside. If we can prove that these are safe and we can do a gate with gain fire department approval for that, would the city be open to allow us to have a gate? So that's it. Wrap it up and pass it off.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Andy Cabianca with Marquee Development and Teal Point Custom Homes. 323 West Jefferson Street here in Boise. We've worked hard with the neighbors, P&Z, city staff, Ridge to Rivers, and as a team internally to bring this project in front of the commission and chair this evening. And want to thank everyone involved for their time and effort. Sabrina especially, thank you. We've had a vision for this project since we acquired it in December of 21. Marquee Development, Teal Point Custom Homes, we build the lots we develop. And so with that, this preliminary plat represents not only our vision for this subdivision from a civil engineering perspective, but also to the end goal of home ownership and how this subdivision will function. Lots 2 and 3 specifically are what we're referring to as the chart and lot orientation that goes along with our lot orientation exhibit. Our thought is to put the backyards facing south. Our belief is that our future homeowners don't want to look in the neighbor's backyard just as much as the existing homeowners don't want to be looking into our backyards. It also flows well with the street. In short, I believe our team addressed the concerns that we had. And from a development standpoint, we believe this project is relatively humble and complementary to our adjacent community. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, you guys are all set? Okay, great, thanks. We'll check in now, see if we have someone from the East End Neighborhood Association present to testify. And check online. Okay, very good. We'll go then. We'll go ahead and open this up then for any questions by the commission to the applicant or to staff.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Daly.
I've got a couple questions to start off with.
Yeah, go for it.
So my first question, I guess this could be for any member of the team, specifically on the geotech side of things, I think, is I need a little bit of information here. 5,000 cubic yards brought in of fill. How many cubic yards are on a truckload? All right.
We have someone come up to the podium, please.
Yeah, Derek Kerner, David Evans and Associates, 9175 West Black Eagle Drive. So 20, I said 40, you said 20. So 20 cubic yards is what's on a truck.
I'm sorry, what was the answer?
20.
20. So about 250, give or plus, somebody's going to be off by a little bit, right?
Yep.
Truckloads of dirt coming up to the site. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, just making sure. Next question I have is to the applicant. This might be somebody else, I'm not sure, but it could be you too. I want to understand this. The claim that the sidewalk shouldn't be put in because we don't want to add impervious surface, right? That's the claim. Is the roadway that you're building pervious or impervious?
It is impervious.
Are the
Asphalt.
homes themselves pervious or impervious?
Impervious.
Are the driveways pervious or impervious?
They'll be impervious.
Are there patios that we probably don't see on here that might be part of this, walkways, that sort of thing? Are those pervious or impervious?
Impervious.
So the sidewalk, the sliver of sidewalk that's being required, that's going too far? Is that what I'm getting?
I think like ACHD policy, they're looking at a policy to govern all, right? But yes, their stance is we only need sidewalk on one side to get pedestrians to and from, and then we want to limit impervious surfaces in the foothills.
Sounds like there might be another answer.
The biggest concern that we heard from the neighbors during the public hearing, we've been in contact with the HOA, was truly the parking on the south side of Bene Posto. And during concerts or trail events, if you go on Google Earth or Google Maps and look at a street view, there's two cars parked right in front of the emergency fire access as it is. The idea, because the neighbors were so opposed to parking on that, that's one thing they asked us to continue, whether it was painting the curb red or posting no parking signs. The idea, to my understanding of no sidewalk, is to discourage parking on the south side of Bene Posto.
Hold that.
And then one more, I guess, point to that is that sidewalk doesn't connect anywhere on the north side or the south side. So it's that sidewalk starts at the home on the north side, comes around, stops, and then it goes to the currently there's nothing there, but then from the emergency access trail, there's no sidewalk to connect to from that point.
Okay.
Historically, it's been a dirt pathway.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Commissioner Stanley, any other questions at the moment?
No.
Not right now. Okay. We'll move on to anybody else. Questions?
Sure.
Commissioner Moore?
So with the sidewalk, so with that image that was just up, where does the sidewalk, because it looks like there's just like a small section right where the render kind of starts and then around the corner, and then it starts again at that adjacent subdivision. Is that correct? Kind of so there's like, it stops right before the curb cut that's proposed. And then if you go around the corner, it starts again where that subdivision starts. Is that about right?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, I was hoping this aerial might be a little bit clearer,
Mhm.
but it does, start right to the west, the southwest of this development, and then it doesn't continue after that trail connection to the north.
Okay. Mr. Chair,
Yeah, please, Commissioner Moore.
for the common drive, so what is the difference between, or I guess from the city standpoint, a common drive versus I guess a private drive, or like a shared access versus a private drive? Because I've seen, if we've got one house behind another one, we don't necessarily have a sidewalk on that, which isn't terribly different, just maybe on a much larger scale here.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, common drives are a specific type of access point that's allowed to serve up to 6 parcels. There are some requirements for, how wide the flag lots have to be, what buffers have to be provided on either side of that, and those types of things. Those are also typically restricted to a maximum length of 150 feet, with the exception that the fire department can approve a longer length as long as they have a turnaround provided. Service drives do have different requirements in terms of width as well. So those tend to be a little bit wider than your common drive, which is required at 20 feet. I believe a service drive for this number of lots would be 24 feet at a minimum.
Okay. And so, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, please.
based on my understanding, then this drive basically doesn't qualify as a shared access drive because it's just too long. Then unless they can use those driveways as turnarounds.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, this does qualify as a common drive because they are providing the fire turnaround. There are still requirements in the PUD and subdivision standards and in the connectivity section of code that require pedestrian connectivity to be provided throughout the site, but that's not required with all common driveways, which I think might be where the confusion is coming from.
Okay.
Sabrina, while you're up, what's the city's thought on I forget what they termed it, the setback exhibit, lot orientation exhibit that was provided in our late correspondence packet? Does the city agree with that approach and how they've identified setbacks and their orientation?
Mr. Chair, I did speak with the fire department about that orientation and whether or not the WUI requirement should be provided along the eastern side where they have that common lot that's with the adjacent subdivision. Their stance was that as long as that common lot is maintained by the adjacent subdivision, the proposed lot orientation and setbacks are acceptable.
Okay. So on that same note, then, I'll be honest, I'm a little concerned because the applicant is pushing back on the WUI requirements. They're providing it, they're proposing to gate the roadway, the driveway. So when you start to add all these things up, it feels concerning to me. This is the city's standpoint. I understand we have fire's comments. I've read the packet. I'm very aware of fire's comments. But when you start to kind of compound these various topics, to me, it feels concerning. Does staff have any thought on that? The fact when you look at the big picture and everything they're asking for?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through the PUD, we have the ability to place conditions to mitigate those concerns. Staff attempted to do that in the staff report and our recommended conditions. If the commission doesn't feel comfortable with that or thinks there are additional conditions that should be added, you're welcome to do that to ensure compliance with the requirements.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moore, yeah.
I have a follow-up on that WUI setback. So the condition is as long as that neighborhood maintains it, but it doesn't look any different than the rest of the foothills in this area. It looks kind of, like foothills land. So would that wouldn't be defined as maintained. They'd have to change it to comply.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore, when I spoke with the fire department, their main note that they made is that the HOA for that adjacent subdivision would need to keep the grass at a certain length or below a certain length so that it's mowed and is less flammable.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And then, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, please.
for that egress, is there, part of that WUI argument is that there's a gravel pathway. Is there any easement or anything written that keeps that gravel pathway there, or is it subject to just whatever that subdivision does?
Commissioner Moore and Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moore. Yes, as part of the adjacent subdivisions conditions, that is required to remain there.
Okay.
John, I'm sorry. I see your hand up. Left you
Oh,
hanging.
no problem. Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have a question for staff. So my understanding is the city policy about detached sidewalks and street trees versus attached sidewalks is primarily a pedestrian safety issue. My question for staff then is, the applicant's claim is that that's not found in code anywhere. And my question is, do we have kind of a philosophy as we look at these developments of pedestrian, I'll call it arterials. For example, it's a cul-de-sac here. Beneposto is, if you're walking out of that neighborhood, there's not going to be a whole lot of vehicle traffic. If you're walking down this common driveway out of Burgundy View subdivision, there's not going to be a whole lot of traffic safety issues for a pedestrian. But they get more and more, so it would seem like we should have some kind of taper from a detached sidewalk with street trees required to attached sidewalks are okay. Is that what's staff's position on how we approach that, for example, in cul-de-sacs?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, our comprehensive plan does encourage the use of detached sidewalks with street trees wherever possible. Part of that is to provide pedestrian safety. In this context, I would also say that drainage is a key component. Having that landscape buffer breaking up the impervious surface of the common drive versus the impervious surface of the sidewalk is beneficial in this context.
Okay. Follow up for staff then on, actually, this is a question for the applicant then. So for the new residents in Burgundy View, as they walk out of their new neighborhood down to Beneposto and they want to go down to Eastdale and hang a right or a left and go into town or go up the street to a neighbor's house, your claim is that we shouldn't have a sidewalk there because we don't want people parking for concerts. But what about the new neighbors that want to walk down the street to their new neighbors in the next subdivision to the east? How do they get there? Are we asking them to get on the road, across the street to a sidewalk that's not on the other side of the street either? How do they get to Eastdale?
To answer your question, Mr. Mooney, currently there is no sidewalk starting with that lot north of the entrance on Beneposto. And if you were to follow from where that sidewalk terminates at the end of that lot, across the street from our entrance, there's no sidewalk all the way down Eastdale on that side. And then if you continue down Eastdale, there's no sidewalk on the south side of Eastdale either. Sidewalk ends at the property corner at the kind of the center of the cul-de-sac there. Their sidewalk ends, and there's no sidewalk from that point all the way down to Eastdale. And then the sidewalk doesn't pick up until the first lot of the adjacent subdivision. So I guess to answer your question, I'm not sure how they would get to Eastdale on a sidewalk, if that's what you're asking. I also wanted to clarify, felt like we were talking about two different things: the sidewalk within the subdivision and then also the sidewalk on the public street. So
that's good. I think the way I understand the city's condition is they're they're conditioning detached sidewalks and street trees both on the common driveway as well as on Benny Posto. Is that your understanding?
It is.
Okay. And my point is that there needs to be some kind of pedestrian facility on Benny Posto. And if, for example, the commission decided to maybe go with attached interior to your common driveway and, kind of thread the needle with the conditions, would you be agreeable to extending an attached sidewalk from Benny Posto all the way out to Eastdale?
No, we would not.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I got one more question, Mr. Chair, for staff. The existing trail easement on that northeast corner, is there an easement there already that the other Nativa Terra common lot is? How did that trail get on this property without an easement?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Mooney, I'm not aware of an existing easement over the portion of the trail that's on the subject property. Why the trail for the adjacent subdivision passes through this property, I'm not sure, but the applicant is proposing to provide an easement for public connection over it.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Sabrina.
Okay, are we good on questions, gang? Okay. Chris? Okay. All right, very good. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for that. We'll go ahead then and open this up for any public testimony on this item. And we will start with folks in person want to testify tonight. Any takers? No takers. Okay. We'll check in online. I see one or two people online. If you're online, would like to testify on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand. Okay, we got a quiet group this evening. All right. Okay, team. So typically this is the opportunity for you all to rebut anything that's presented during public testimony. Obviously that didn't happen. Any public testimony didn't happen. So you're welcome to yield your rebuttal time, or if you want to do a quick rebuttal, that would be fine as well.
Yeah, Derek Kerner, David Evans, and I just want to touch on those three things. So yeah, staff is recommending detached sidewalk along Benny Posto, dual detached sidewalk along our common driveway, internal, and then no gate. We brought up the fact that, hey, there's a rule that says no gate. We would like a gate if at all possible. If we can demonstrate that it's safe and we can get fire department approval, why not let us have the gate? I do want to point out that some of the resubmittal items, we had a letter from our WUI experts, so we are required to do a wildland urban interface plan. It's all part of the new hillside ordinances the last couple of years. So we've really had to get an expert like this on board. So we've got environmental conservation services. He's got a letter here in the packet that Penelope sent. And so we actually asked him to head on this the 30-foot WUI along this common lot. And to eliminate that large, what we think is a side yard setback for those back two lots. So what he says is he's calling out the fact that wide gravel pathway, which really would accommodate a vehicle, a fire department vehicle to fight a wildfire out there. That's right up against our boundary. So he's looking as long as that wasn't moved, which it's not planned to be moved. He sees that as a defensible space as well. So not 30 feet completely on our side type of thing, where he's like, no, you could do your 10 side setback. And then you've got this HOA maintained common lot that, like you said, it looks exactly like everything else. However, it really is kept down as far as even the neighbors to our east, part of their defensible plan. So anyway, we have a letter there kind of addressing that particular issue of, hey, just asking the experts, is it okay if we do not count a 30-foot WUI or plan for a 30-foot WUI along our entire eastern boundary? And the answer is yes, it's okay to not count for that. They're only counting for the 30-foot WUI on the south. internal is probably a bigger deal for us, really. The dual detached sidewalks, internal, that boulevard look, it's not what we're looking for. We're looking for a very private driveway, even a gate if allowed, to 5 1-acre estate lots. So this is a kind of a thing like pedestrian connectivity. We don't need any, just walk down the driveway. We're talking very low volume driveway here. So all these 5 people probably get to know each other very well, be neighborly, let the kids ride the bicycles up and down the driveway. That kind of thing. We don't feel like we need a 5-foot detached and another 5-foot detached just for 5 homes. So if they're going to be going anywhere substantial, they're going to be driving. They live up in the foothills. They need to go grocery shopping, that kind of thing. There's not a whole lot of, like Andy said, connecting pathways here. So in our opinion, that's the bigger deal for sure. That's not what we envision, a giant boulevard coming down into these 5-acre state lots. Just have a gate if allowed, a very private, secluded development, and use the driveway, kids. Have fun. So if you need to go up, just walk down the middle of the driveway. It's yours. So no dual sidewalks. I think it's an ask because it doesn't appear to be required for common driveways. On the Bene Posto thing, we'd like to not do it because we feel like it's going to nowhere. Start it here, end it here. We're not going all the way to the road out front because that wouldn't be our frontage, right? And all of a sudden, do we have enough right away there? Questions that haven't been asked, but we just didn't want to have to do it. And it's ACHD's concern of it's more impervious surface into their drainage systems and their roadways. So whether it's detached, that would help. It really would if there's a buffer there for drainage, but just ACHD less impervious surface draining to their systems. So those are the 3 things asking, really on an individual basis. The sidewalk along Bene Posto, the sidewalk internal, pretty important to us, and then the gate, if allowed. If the city would, how do I say it lightly, get out of the way. If we can achieve approval with the emergency services, will let us do that. Thank you.
One last thing I'd, like to stress importance on for us is just clarification on the lot orientation. Currently in the staff report, it shows the front of the yards facing Bene Posto Place, which creates a number of problems for the lots if we are taking access off of the common driveway. And so the lot orientation exhibit we sent is just to clarify, in the staff report, it dictates the front is to Bene Posto, the rear is to the south, the side is to the east and the west, and on several of those lots that wouldn't work for our vision. So just kind of clarifying that is one last thing I'd like to stress.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. You bet. Thank you, guys. Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and bring these items back before the commission to render a decision. We've got 3 items here on this project, so we can take them all one at a time. We can take them all together.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Stead.
I move that we approve item number 4, CFH 22-90, PUD 22-68, SUB 22-69, with the terms and conditions as stated in the staff report, with the added condition as proposed by the applicant that a public easement be added for trail access.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion to approve by Commissioner Stead and a second by Commissioner Blanchard. Meredith, you want to?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So I guess as far as the sidewalk goes, I know that, we hear often that sidewalks aren't connecting. And so therefore they don't want to build it, but we have to start somewhere with sidewalks. And that is an expense that needs to fall on the developer. We need to do what we can to support that infrastructure. when we're building so that then the next development that comes in can connect it. And eventually we'll have a lovely city full of sidewalks. And as far as the gate goes, and as far as sidewalks, I know that one of the reasons was that because of concerts and trail events, there's too much parking, so they don't want sidewalks. To me, that's even more reason to put in sidewalks. If we have people coming to the area for things like events and trails and concerts, then sidewalks to me are even more important. Also, it's just something we like to do. We put sidewalks in so that someday we can have sidewalks everywhere. For the gate, we sometimes have to vote against the comprehensive plan, but when we do, it's usually, in my experience, because the code requires it, because the code doesn't align with the comprehensive plan. But in this case with the gate, I don't see a reason to go against the comprehensive plan, even if the fire department agreed to it. I don't think that we make most of the items that are in the comprehensive plan are not solely for the fire department. I'm sure that there were other reasons that went into that when it was put together. So for those reasons, I'm supporting approval with those conditions.
Okay, great. Thanks, Meredith. Any other further discussion?
Mr. Chair, may I clarify the motion really quick?
You may, please. We actually have we have an amendment I believe we need to make to it as well, right?
Yes. Did you want to amend that condition, or does that hit what you needed?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. My computer died.
Oh.
So I'm rogue up here now. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Danley.
I will not be supporting the motion. And frankly, there's reasons, in my opinion, that there's be a little further to say that there's parts of this application that I find offensive, to be honest with you. When I'm looking at a conditional use permit and looking at a planned unit development, part of what we're looking for is how does it satisfy the vision of the community at large? And what I've heard in quotes, we don't need the sidewalk. We don't want the parking. The gate is to keep people out, right? We don't want a condition. We're not looking to extend the sidewalk for the benefit of any public good. I consistently hear, and not to mention 250 plus heavy trucks going up and down roads with fill, right? There's so many things about this that to me just fall far short of the recognition that this is part of the community. This is part of the city. Yes, it's private development and there's a right to develop, no doubt about that. But there's also, I think, a responsibility, and it's codified in the PUD, codified in our conditional use permit, and in our comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance, for that matter, all those things, that there be some degree of a shared presence with each application that we approve. And man, there's just so many things about this that I find to be to fall short. At the very least, if I were to approve the conditions that were put forth, sidewalks on both sides, people want to walk, right? They want to get around. The parking, it's a public street. If someone wants to park on a public street, they're allowed to. That's the public realm. All of us taxpayers own the public realm and have a right to park on it. So, you know, if they want to walk in the trails, that's why we have our trail system, Ridge to Rivers, right? I mean, I can go on. I'm not going to. You get the gist. But for those reasons and so forth, I will be against the motion.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Blanchard.
To your points, Commissioner Danley, I would be more than interested to hear. I feel exactly the same way, is that I've never been like, I can't remember seeing an application where we were asked to give so much and you wanted to give so little. I truly cannot remember a time when it was like, you don't want to do anything we're asking you to do. It's truly bewildering. I would be, if you have other suggestions to further the debate, I am more than willing to hear them. For the sake of argument, I offered the second because, staff has given their approval saying, here's what we think needs to be done. And I tend to agree with that. And I also agree with Commissioner Stead that, that we should, as condition 5 shows up there, that the public easement should be granted. But if you have additional ways of making this better, I'm all ears.
I'm going to check in with Commissioner Mooney real quick online, and then we can continue the discussion.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I will not be in support of the motion either, but for a different reason. Based on the discussion with the applicant and the staff, I agree with the applicant regarding the detached sidewalks and the street tree discussion. I think there ought to be some little more reasonable approach to it from the city's perspective, and agree that attached sidewalks would be appropriate, especially on the common driveway. And I even think on Benny Posto, it's reasonable too. So that's why I think that's a step too far. So I'm in opposition to it for a different reason, which is why I asked the applicant the question, would you be interested in extending the sidewalk all the way down to Eastdale? And when the answer to that was no, it's like, okay, well, then you're really not really interested in helping things out here. So that's an unusual position I'm taking, but there it is.
Okay, thanks, John. Okay. We're in an interesting situation on this one. In general, I am supportive of the project. I do agree, however, with Commissioner Danley that there's a cost to development, and you are a piece to a puzzle that is our city. And I would even challenge Commissioner Mooney to think beyond the detached sidewalk and the street trees providing no benefit other than just being there. In that street trees help clean our air. They are a public asset. They help with soil retention in the hillsides. So there's a greater good in my mind for the street trees as well. We spent an awful lot of time on this dais talking about sidewalks. Like probably more than anything, we talk about sidewalks, right? And in a lot of ways, we're talking about the same thing. We're all identifying the problem that there are gaps in the sidewalk infrastructure up here, but the applicant doesn't want to build any more sidewalks to help fix the gaps that exist within the sidewalk system. So it's a really strange, sometimes a very strange circular argument that we find ourselves in. And you all stand to benefit quite handsomely from developing this property, quite frankly. So I have no problem at all with the staff report as it's written right now. And providing street trees and providing sidewalks and thinking about the greater good beyond this development. I would also support Commissioner Danley, and if he has additions or other thoughts, I am completely with Commissioner Blanchard on this, that we should entertain other improvements if we think it's warranted. The other piece of this real quick that I'm a little concerned about is the WUI setback and utilizing another subdivision as the protective buffer. So the code is quite clear. When you're developing a property, you need to have protective buffers in the foothills for fire protection. And in this case, I'm a little flummoxed that we're allowing an adjacent subdivision to use their land as the protective buffer for this subdivision. That is very strange to me. It's like us saying the setbacks from a neighboring property, in the north end, support reducing the setbacks on a property adjacent to it. It's very circular. So I'm struggling with that issue right now. That's the one where I'm kind of hung up on. But otherwise, I think I'm pretty good with the staff report as it's written. Commissioner Moore.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So I would be in support of the motion with the addition of the WUI, because that is something that I'm struggling with too, is relying on an adjacent subdivision that's doing everything right to comply. And when these lots are quite large, there's plenty of space to have that 30 feet. I don't see a hardship that would justify that. In terms of the detached versus attached sidewalk, if I'm looking at the picture in our packet 185, it looks like there's kind of an informal detached sidewalk sort of formed anyways. I'm seeing, 8-ish feet of grass maybe cheatgrass, but of grass. And then there's what looks like a path that's formed in that area. So it's kind of naturally formed that way. So it seems like that's kind of the way that people want to use it, is a little bit further off of the road. So I think that in itself is an argument for a detached sidewalk right there. It's just, it's how it's naturally forming. But yeah, the WUI thing, I would support the motion with the modification of the WUI.
Okay. We have a little bit of housekeeping to take care of beyond that anyway, but if we want to entertain some other discussion too, yeah, that's fine. We do have, because we do need to circle back on the lot orientation exhibit. I think we need to put that in as a condition if we all agree with that, right? Because that is a loose end at the moment. Correct, staff? Yes. Okay. Okay. So, so Commissioner Danley, did you have any other thoughts at the matter, or?
I guess to add to the conversation, I mean, it was a note that I had too, is so how is it that we're going to condition this as a right of condition for approval, tie the hands of an adjacent property to develop a common lot? How, I don't think I've ever seen us do that before in the 5 or 6 years I've been up here. How that's infringing on not just the public, that's infringing on another property owner. So to me, that's another way that this application is, you know, sort of asking others, even more people, to step up to help them to comply. And I don't understand that. I don't think that the applicant would want a condition on an adjacent property to infringe on their future right to develop. So I'm pretty certain of that, you know, so I don't understand how that can be even a starter.
We might see if staff has any input on this topic, because we're a bit confused.
Sure. Mr. Chair, so when the fire department looks at the WUI setbacks, they look at developed open space versus undeveloped open space. When they refer to developed open space, they're just saying it's open space that's part of a subdivision that's owned and maintained by the subdivision. So in this case, that adjacent common lot is owned and mowed by that subdivision to the east.
Okay. Well, team, there you have it. I guess, like,
Can I, clarifying question, but you're the judge on whether it's even be asked. So I guess the question is, then if the adjacent property owner, I'm assuming that's some form of a HOA that has this common lot, if they said, hey, we want to put a picnic ground and a concrete slab for something on this common space, does that then violate the condition of this WUI, that all of a sudden that would no longer be permissible by the Boise Fire Department? I mean, they have the right to do something with that. I mean,
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, yeah, so that lot currently is a developed open space lot. It's part of that subdivision. It has their trail connection on it. If they wanted to add some other type of amenity, it might require some type of PUD modification or something like that. But it wouldn't affect the WUI setback for this property in that way. So that larger setback is required from undeveloped open space, like the natural land to the south, not from developed open space, like the common lot to the east.
okay. This is an unusual one, quite honest. Very unusual. No, I think,
Point of
so-
order real quick.
Mr. Blanchard, go ahead.
It sounds like where we might be is if Commissioner said we're willing to accept a friendly amendment from several of the commissioners regarding a WUI.
Yeah.
It sounds like
Yes,
that
it
might be the
was.
closest
Yep.
thing for us.
That or we have to deal with, it's tied to that lot orientation exhibit, right? So we have to deal with that one way or the other. So, and it looks like Commissioner Mooney has his hand up again. We'll throw back to John real quick too. Go ahead, John.
Mr. Chair, your argument swayed me. So I am in support of the motion.
Thank you, John. Okay. So I think I mean, I'll be very honest, it's a very strange situation. We have fire saying it's okay to do this. Staff is sort of in agreement with that as well. And we're kind of the only ones that are a little bit pushing back against that idea. So it's just a little strange in my experience up here. I think we can, as the motioner, Meredith, I think, if you want to propose an amendment one way or the other.
Well, can you help me with the lot orientation amendment that I need to propose?
Well, the lot orientation amendment basically eliminates the WUI setback requirement on the east boundary. Correct.
The commission.
Right. So that's kind of where we're questioning, is that the right move? Because it's basically saying that the common lot adjacent to the east in the other subdivision is the protective buffer, is the fire buffer. So that's what the lot orientation exhibit basically indicates. Yeah. Go ahead, Chris, what do you got?
I guess my question was going to be for James. This seems to me to be, for city attorney, seems to me to be akin to a discussion when somebody wants to build like a large apartment building on one side of State Street. And we're like, well, wait a minute, there's not even a bus stop there. We can't compel them to put in a bus stop. Right. Because it's not part of, so it seems to me that this is a like issue where it's like, we're compelling these other landowners to offer their space in defense of, right? I mean, can we even do this?
It's kind of the gist of it.
Right.
But I guess, James, just to circle everything back, fire and planning staff are suggesting that approach is appropriate. I think all of us up here are struggling with that idea.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, for the record, James Smith, Deputy City Attorney. This is not to act as a super department or tiebreaker on this sticky issue, but I'll just go direct to Commissioner Blanchard's question about, can the commission here bind or control other property that is not the subject of this application? No, it cannot. So whatever that property is subject to, whatever development conditions or deed restrictions or easements it is subject to, that remains. That it is what it is. And this application and the commission's decision on it, whatever commissions might attach or conditions might attach, are to this property and this applicant, not to neighbors that are part of a different property or a different subdivision that's already entitled. So this is something new. And if you have questions about what that means or how it relates, and I think those are properly directed to staff. If that helps, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, James.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Stead.
I'm happy to continue to discuss this. I'm also happy to amend the motion. I actually can see both sides of it for sure, because if we're saying that the setback is for, fire safety and defensible space, and they're not, and there's another property from them and between them and the, flammable foothill, then I can see that counts, right? Like, I don't need that same fire setback because I live close to the foothills, let's say, but there's 4 houses in between that count as that defensible space, right? So I don't need that same setback. So I can see why fire is okay with this and staff supports this. I guess I can see that side of it, right? Where if the point of the WUI setback is to create defensible space, there is defensible space because there is other development around it.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Moore.
I think that makes sense. And I think Sabrina's explanation really helped me. The reason that they have that defensible space is because they went first. If this development had gone first, it would have had to do that too. But since they didn't, they don't, and now it qualifies. So they're just benefiting from not being first. And I think, that's not atypical. You kind of pay a higher price when you go first. So I think I could, with that explanation, I could be okay with leaving the setbacks as written in the staff report, just because it is covered. And the subdivision to the east has done it, just because at that time it was undeveloped space.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Daly.
I apologize if this muddies the water, but I just need to ask the question of staff. And that is that, so was this adjacent subdivision notified, and clearly is it understood to them as an HOA of what this pending application means for their common lot? So that if in the future fire code changes in some way, right, they're not deed restricted. I mean, is it clearly articulated to them that this application has a direct effect on what they can or cannot do with their property?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Danley, I'm not aware of any specific communication that was given to them outside of the typical noticing that the city does send out and that the applicant was required to send out prior to their neighborhood meetings. So they were aware that this application is coming through.
Okay. All right, so Meredith, I think as the motioner, we do, I think given your last name, I think we need an amendment to your motion that would make the lot orientation exhibit part of the record moving forward. Is that correct, staff? Do I have that right?
Mr. Chair,
Or are we good without a motion on that particular item?
could you repeat that one more time? Sorry.
Do we need to, so we have the lot orientation exhibit that was in our late correspondence packet. Do we need an amendment to our motion to give that our approval? Because it differs from the preliminary plat that's in our packet.
Mr. Chair, I think the safe thing to do would be to include that in your motion.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
So, sorry, can I just amend it to include the late correspondence lot orientation? Perfect.
As a seconder, do you agree with that, Commissioner Landry?
Yes.
Okay, great. We good there, staff? Good enough? Okay. All right, I think we've chatted, we've vetted this out, I think, as well as we're going to get tonight. So we have a motion to approve and a recommendation to approve the subdivision, of course, with the additional, with amendments to the, including the public access easement, which I believe was in the say specifics anyhow, and then the amendment that makes the lot orientation exhibit part of the record moving forward, and that we agree with that approach. So unless there's any other final thoughts, John, are you good? Okay. If there's any other final thoughts, I'm going to go ahead and call the roll.
Stead,
Aye.
Schaefer,
Aye.
Blanchard,
Aye.
Moore,
Aye.
Pinfrock,
Aye.
Danley,
No.
Mooney,
Aye.
6 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned.